Hello there, I'm Begalius. How is it going? Let's get galactic. Let's do some Star Wars talk right now. Every now and then, when I'm reviewing these things, I love doing these reviews, but every now and then there's just a slam dunk, like a game or a movie or whatever that I know I'm gonna love, and it's a bit of a formality that I say I like it, but I still do, because I want everyone to know. I want to give my recommendation unto the world, unto the 70 people who are going to view that recommendation. But this is one of those. This is Star Wars Jedi Survivor, and I knew I was going to like this game because this game was made for me. This game was tailor-made for me in numerous ways. Firstly, it's Star Wars. I'm going to be completely honest with you, and this may ruin my objective sort of viewpoint on this game, but it's hard. It's hard to make a Star Wars product that I'm going to dislike. I just love the universe so much. The universe is so important to me, and such an ingrained part of my personality, and sort of always has been for as long as I can remember, that it's difficult to make something in the Star Wars universe that I'm not going to sort of just intrinsically love. There's a sort of warm glow about the Star Wars universe, other than maybe like the Star Wars Battlefront reboot that I didn't like, a couple of bits here and there. Attack of the Clones, I'm not a fan of, but I even like the sequel movies. So here, this was obviously going to be something where I enjoy the universe, and I really do enjoy the universe. It's really fantastic. It's also an adventure game. It's a single player game, firstly, which, immediate praise from me. It's also an adventure game, so, there's lots of action, lots of things to do. You go from one place to the next, and those games are few and far between nowadays, and it's nice to see something like that. But it's also a game where you constantly feel a sense of progress. It's a game where you master the combat and the overall gameplay, and you feel as though you're progressing over time, not only through that, but through leveling and ability points. It's not just a straightforward go from here to there adventure game. There's, it's very encounter based, and I love that too. So it's kind of a slam dunk. There's nothing particularly bad here. There's nothing wrong here, and I love it. This is a really, really incredible game, and I just think it's very well executed too. There are lots of games that feel like this and that play like this. Lots of Souls-like games out there. Remnant and Lords of the Fallen and stuff like that. But this just. I just feel like they just nailed it with this. Somehow Respawn absolutely nailed it with this. Part of the reason I love it so much is there's a lot of accessibility here too. That's another reason that it's a slam dunk. You can really tailor the gameplay to your needs. You can play a Souls-like game in a very easy mode, just because you want to experience the story and run around in the world and experience the combat too. Excuse me, and the characters and what have you. And if you just want to play through the game like that, then go for it, yeah, and you get a unique game where you still feel the progress of the game, and you still feel that the game isn't particularly straightforward or that linear, but you can just blast your way through, and the story itself is great. I enjoyed the story in the first game. This is about on par with that. I really like the guy Cameron something, who both voices and models the lead character. I just think he's fantastic and did a really fantastic job here. But I also like the supporting cast. I don't know, they do gel well with one another, and I love the environments here. I think one big change here is that everything is just like scaled up, right? Like everything is just bigger than it was in the previous game. It always makes the previous game feel like a bit of a tech demo for what was next to come and for what they actually wanted to make in the following game. So in the previous game, it felt a lot linear and tighter, a lot more linear and tighter, and sort of more alleyway based, whereas in this it feels actually honestly very wide open and expansive, and it gives a bigger sense of like breadth and adventure to it. And I mean, not entirely. There are sort of like corridory sections, and this is more in the sort of like space station areas, and typically the more like built up man-made areas. But in the organic areas, it's very wide open, and there's lots of wildlife running around and stuff like that, and you can ride animals and everything, and it just makes it feel bigger. But you still get all of these great little secrets and boxes and unlocks and little secret areas here and there, which made the first game, you know, really elevated the first game and elevates it even further here, because there's so much more customization, you know, just customizing cows, Poncho now, you know, there's more to customize. There's more lightsaber customization, stances now, materials, and obviously there's things to find like extra stims, which I love. You know, I love the fact that as you play the game, you'll unlock like more health and you'll get more and more stims. So you start the game with, I think, 2 stims. I'm currently on 5, you know, and you keep building that up. And there's just been a lot like added to the game overall. Like now you have these bounties, these like mini bosses that you'll just encounter, and if you take them down, you get like these tokens and you can hand them to someone. It's a whole thing. And yeah, like I said, the mini boss encounters, not everything is just like smaller enemies and then bigger enemies. There's lots more to it now. There's like RPG elements, like you collect these coins and stuff, and you can go and buy stuff. It's innocuous things like hairstyles and what have you, but it's still cool that there's these sort of RPG elements. And I think that's the overall vibe with the game, is that everything's just sort of expanded and just become bigger, and I guess that's what you want. It really is a tremendous sequel in that sense. I love a sequel that just takes all of the great things about the first game and just builds on it. I've said this numerous times with like Halo 2 and Battlefront 2 and what have you. And this feels like one of those games where it's just like, okay, let's take what was great and build and build and build and build. And there's little things like you can use BD to like zoom in, a la Far Cry and things like that. There's just a lot going on here. It's not perfect, you know. Sometimes the parkour elements can be just as annoying as they were in the first game, and you kind of scratching your head going like, this was annoying in the first game, why are we doing this now? Although there are a couple of bits that sort of make traversal easier. You have like this grapple gun that you can use that comes in very handy. You know, and it's not 100% polished. There's a few glitches here and there. I think it's a little bit, this may be controversial, but at times a little bit too heavy on the puzzles, leans on that just a little bit too much for what feels like just the sake of padding. This happened a lot in the first game, and it feels as though it happens even more in this one. And I think one of the bigger complaints that I have is that a lot of the areas that you visit are just expanded parts of an area that you've already visited. So biome wise, you do get, I think, a bigger disparity between the two. Like you have like these built up areas where everything's like platforms, and that you're in the cityscape, which is exactly what I wanted for the first one. And you know, you go from that to a very organic, wide open world, but the in-between bit, like, it doesn't really exist. It doesn't feel as though like you're going from place to place to place to places. Though I do love the biomes, it doesn't feel overly varied. But at the same time, they have added the bits that I wanted. Like you have townsfolk now. You have areas that feel lived in, rather than a lot of sort of desolate areas, which is what we got with Jedi got Fallen Order. That was the one. So that's great. And overall, I just think this is an incredible game. I think it's an easy, very easy recommend. It's an absolute blast, and you will just have fun from start to finish. You know, there's never a time when this is just a boring game. It's always fantastic, and there's always something to do. So I'd absolutely recommend Jedi Survivor. Fantastic Star Wars game, and awesome game. And that's that. Okay, that's the score, and I'll see everyone later in another galaxy. No, there's no YouTube in other galaxies. Okay.
The PlayStation is only $149, and you can also get leading titles.